Prologue to Carmilla, the unknown narrator that we met in Green Tea returns to tell us about a manuscript that he found among the papers of his former employer, Dr. Martin Hesselius. The manuscript had been written by an intelligent lady who was no longer alive at the time of the discovery. A note left by Hesselius in reference to the manuscript states that the subject matter involves some of the profoundest arcana of our dual existence. Chapter 1 introduces us to an Englishman who lives in a large mansion in a southeastern Austrian forest, also known as Styria. He lives there with his daughter and 2 governesses, and we learn that his closest neighbor is a man who goes by the name of General Spielsdorf. The Englishman's daughter is our narrator, and she feels that it's important for us to know that when she was 6 years old, some unknown, strange young lady had crawled into her bed and bit her while she was sleeping. The Englishman's daughter, who is writing from the point of view of a 19-year-old, tells us that late one evening, her father had asked her to join him for a walk. He wanted to tell her that General Spielsdorf would not be bringing his niece over for a visit, because the poor girl has died. It was during this walk that suddenly a horse-drawn carriage appeared at a steep bridge close by the estate. They are shocked to witness the carriage turn on its side in a fury of noise. An older woman and a young lady emerge from this scene, where the older woman is distraught to realize that her daughter might be too much affected by the accident to continue in their journey. At the behest of his own daughter, the Englishman offers to care for the young lady until the woman can return to retrieve her. The story of Carmilla doesn't tell us what year it took place, and so the best we can do is look at the overall collection of stories in the publication and weave whatever connection we can find. This connection is possible because of the prologues that are present before each story, which contain information about Dr. Hesselius and his collected papers. The prologue to Green Tea, for example, contains reference to the year 1819. The story entitled The Familiar contains no specific numerical year, but when we get to Mr. Justice Harbottle, we find the year 1805 in the prologue and the year 1808 mentioned in the story itself. In the room in the Dragon Volant, the year 1815 is mentioned in the story section, and so is the year 1811, which is referred to twice. As in The Familiar, Carmilla mentions no specific numerical year either. But if Dr. Hesselius had commenced correspondence with the narrator of Carmilla, then it's possible to take a leap into generalities and deduce that her narrative more than likely took place sometime around the time of England's Regency era, circa 1811 to 1820. When the prologue to Carmilla states that the Englishman's daughter wrote her narrative with such conscientious particularity, we have to take a step back and ponder just how much times have changed. I might ask, have you ever thought of someone's story as being told with conscientious particularity? It speaks to the line drawn between those who had been educated and those who hadn't, because the term conscientious particularity, I can hardly say the 2 words, is both scientific and flowery, but it's also archaic. And maybe that's because the well-educated and the less educated have come to flow together in this world. But maybe I'm just being funny about all this. The juxtaposition between safety and danger is on display within these first 2 chapters. Our narrator's father was in the Austrian service, and so there is a protected aspect to the way in which she portrays herself. And yet there's perplexity in the notion that she was bitten by an intruder who entered her room without anyone's knowledge. Additionally, The scene around the mansion is both lush and idyllic, and yet news of the general's dismay at his niece's death taints the atmosphere. And when the moon comes into view, we get the idea that it's being observed by a closely knit family that's enjoying the evening. But when talk of spiritual activity comes into play, a sudden carriage accident disturbs their tranquil moment. And of course, we can't forget that the whole of all this is prefaced by descriptions of an abandoned village, which houses the moldering tombs of the Karnsteins.